This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
I just fell in love with that concept that no matter what you do, you can always get better. You basically never get to let yourself off the hook, and I like that.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of Do It for a Living. This one's a special one here. We've got episode 100, and I think fittingly so, we've got Reid, the founder and creator of Do It for a Living, as our guest. So, Reid, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm living the dream, baby. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, yeah, this is a cool one because technically you haven't done an actual interview with your background, so I think we can finally hear your story, and this is a good time to do it. We've got probably the biggest audience we've had ever. We're getting roughly 4,000 to 5,000 downloads per episode now, which is pretty dang good. I mean, we started from when we took it over from when you were doing it, we were down into the 1,500 downloads, I think, and you were doing pretty good. I think you had about 2,500 downloads per episode. So we want to thank all our guests for hanging on and telling their friends about it because it is growing.
Yeah.
Why don't you get started by telling us your background? How did you get involved in cars? How did you create Kaizenspeed? Okay,
so when I was a kid, I guess I just found myself interested in cars. So I was doing RC cars in 6th grade, and the really kind of strange thing for me is that no one in my family is a car guy. And I've talked about that before. So I just found myself in my room when I was, 11, 12, just building RC cars. And so then it just kind of stayed there. I kind of got away from it when I turned into a teenager and started skateboarding and whatever. And then when I turned 16, it was just right back into it. And I remember, so through high school, it was just everything that you could do to make your car faster. So it was, I didn't have any money, so it was removing all the rubber plugs from the car and removing the battery tray and drilling holes in it and putting it back in. And I remember my junior to senior high school summer, I worked as a telemarketer, and they had this unlimited overtime thing where you could just work as many hours as quite literally you could. And so I spent that whole summer, I'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'd work until 8 o'clock at night just at this telemarketing job because I wanted to buy an H22 for my Prelude. And I still remember to this day, it was $2,480 shipped that I had to come up with over that summer. And all my friends were out bridge jumping and having a good time. And I was sat in that telemarketing office, just $12, $12 an hour, I guess.
Calling people,
Overtime, slamming sales. And I was that asshole. So, it was there. And then I went to...
Did you get the engine?
Yeah, I ended up getting the engine and trying to get it. So then I installed it. And that was the first thing that I ever did. So I was in my garage at my parents' house, and me and my buddies that didn't have any idea what we were doing, but we were going to figure it out. So we stuffed it in, and I still remember calling Hasport and talking to Brian and asking wiring questions and just being amazed at the amount of knowledge that they had and just, wanting to harness that. I wanted a piece of that.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to be the guy that had the answers, not the questions. And we did that. And then I was trying to figure out kind of what I was going to do. And my parents were pressuring me to go to school, of course. And so I ended up in an automotive technology program locally here. And then did that for a year, and then ended up in business administration courses. And I remember sitting in the library, just my skin's crawling. I'm doing calculus homework, like poorly.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and people would come in from my calculus class. I'd see them. They'd come in. I'd already be there studying. They'd come in, do their homework, and leave. I'd still be on like the second problem. So I'm putting in the hours, but I'm dying. And I remember my skin just crawling, just knowing that the industry's existing without me. And it just drove me crazy. So after finishing my associate's degree and then getting accepted to go finish my bachelor's, I put it off for 6 months. And then I was like, put it off for another 6 months. And I finally, and this whole time I'm kind of doing work, in my buddy's backyard. And I finally just said, screw it. And
So
went for it.
You have finished associate's degree, you just didn't finish a bachelor's degree.
Yep, correct.
Okay, so you have some like education and background in business administrative, and I guess which is relevant to running a business.
A little bit, yeah. I'd say the business law course was interesting, and I think more importantly was just the discipline to, I don't know, have to do things that you didn't want to do.
Okay. Did you go into that kind of thinking, I'm working on this car on the side and I'm having fun doing it, and like maybe there's a business for that? Like, were you wanting to be an entrepreneur? Is that something you were thinking about?
Always. So when I was a kid, I had a skateboard wax company called Good Fishy Earwax.
All right.
And I sold it in skate shops. I used to pour wax, and I would grind up pencil lead and like literally I would cut pencils open and grind the graphite out of them and sprinkle that into the wax. And so the bottom of the wax was like, it would all settle to the bottom.
Uh-huh.
So the bottom of the bar would be like really good for curbs, and the front half of the bar where there was no graphite would be good for, like rails.
Okay.
So I've always been an entrepreneur in that way. Like I used to do that, and to come up with money for my RC cars, I would take all my old clothes, anything that I had, like rock. I had like a rock collection. And I would drag it to the corner where there was like traffic, and I would just sit there and wait for people to stop. And I would, I remember one guy bought my rock collection for like $10.
Selling rocks.
Yeah, I literally sold everything. I sold everything that I could, always. So I've always been doing that.
Okay. So then your college experience was fitting for what you were wanting to do. It kind of sounds like you had the goal, but it was just too slow of a pace, and you needed to just get out of there and do what you wanted to do, huh?
Yeah, I'm terrible at patience.
Okay, so when did you kind of ramp up the car thing?
So,
or I guess out of college, did you have a different job, or is it straight into the cars?
Yeah, no, straight into the cars. Never stopped the cars. It was in my buddy's backyard. We're doing, turbo kits and stuff. This is 2003, 2004. We're doing turbo kits and stuff. My buddy was a sick welder, and I would fab the intercooler tubing and mount the intercoolers and build the manifolds, and he would weld them out. And then we have like 10 cars in my buddy's backyard, and we get a notice from the city. They're like, come in one day and they're like, are you running a business out of this place? And that kind of freaked him and his wife out. So they gave me the boot. And next thing you know, we found a place. It was kind of in the hood, and, just dove in. Like I said, I prefer to jump in head first and drown as opposed to kind of toes first,
Okay. What did you call it? Was that what you called Kaizenspeed?
Yep. So Kaizenspeed's always been the name of the business because Kaizen is the philosophy of continuous improvement that I first learned about when I was reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People when I was in college. Okay. So I just fell in love with that concept that no matter what you do, you can always get better. So you basically never get to let yourself off the hook, and I like that.
All right, we're definitely gonna come back to that this exact topic of the name and Kaizen, and we'll cover that more like when we're talking about the business today. But yeah, okay. So you're working full time. This is 2003. Working on cars in your own business. Is it just you? Did you have any doubts about doing this? Were you making any money?
No, hell no. When I first got started, it was just me. I was in my buddy's backyard. He charged me $200 a month rent. So he had just a 2-bay shop, like in a grassy field in his backyard. And I remember one time I got paid from a customer. It was $1,000. I've been working on this car for like a month. We got $1,000 invoice, and first off, I thought $1,000 was gonna like blow. It was just mind blowing that someone was gonna pay me $1,000. And the guy shows up and he pays his bill. And I went that day to Safeway and I bought one of those brick oven pizzas, like not one of the 88-cent Totinos. Like I'm talking the $6, like brick oven frozen pizzas. And I walked up and down the aisles of Safeway just so that people could see that I had I wish I was joking, but I'm not. I was like so proud of that. Like I had like achieved something. I wanted someone to see me carrying the brick oven pizza. Like I had made it. So no, I wasn't making any money.
Okay. But you were able to pay your rent at least, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
No expenses really going on there. Just, it was me, and I had a $375 a month apartment. And then
what was this in the little, the town that you're in now still?
Yep.
What is it called?
So the area that I'm in is the Tri-Cities, Washington. So it's Kennewick, Pasco, and Richland,
Okay.
Eastern Washington.
Has that location been beneficial to you, or has it hurt you?
I think it's been beneficial because it was, at least in the ramp up, because it was easy to stand out. So we offered a service that nobody else did, because, it's kind of it's a little bit of a hillbilly area, and so it was easy to stand out. So in that way, it's been really good.
Has there been any competition, or was there any competition?
Always, and especially at the beginning, because it was the
heyday of import racing.
Yeah, it was the heyday of the import stuff, right? So that stuff was ramping up, and it was pretty hot, and everybody was talking about it and whatever. So there was a bunch of, it was a bunch of us just hobbyists trying to make it happen. And so, yeah, when we were all just one and two kind of guys fighting over stuff, everyone was talking about, I'm the hot shit. So yeah, it was a lot of competition back then, but again, it was pretty small scale. So at the end of the day, we just outlasted. And
it's a lot different back then than it is now, because it's you can I guess, for lack of a better term, like dick swinging is much bigger now with Facebook and social media than it was back then.
Yeah.
You had to do your fighting at the racetrack back then, right?
Yeah. Right. Now, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. And what's the worst experience you've had in business? I mean, you've been doing it for a while now. I mean, you're going on, I guess, if 2003, you're now at what, 14 years?
Yeah. I mean, officially probably 12 years, and then, before when we had a real business license.
Okay.
That was probably 2005. So, worst experience. So this is probably this winter, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Recent.
Real
recent. I had to let 2 guys go within 3 weeks this winter. And, that was probably a combination of not understanding the length of time required to do something big, and not enough time available to coach and work in the business, tuning and overseeing the day-to-day.
Okay.
So, like, if you want to build a business with 6 or more guys, you're going to need to spend most of your time leading. And you won't have much time to tune, race, design products, things like that. You spend all your time coaching and leading. And so I guess I didn't realize how much time is needed to keep a ship of many people rowing in the same direction. It takes a significant amount of time. And so we had to, like I said, we had to let 2 guys go, guys that, we'd been working with side by side. And that really sucks. Like it weighs on you personally. You start to wonder, like, what is this? Like, am I a failure? Is my, how does this happen?
Have you had to let people go ever before?
Oh yeah.
But I mean, this is almost sounds like you're blaming yourself for this one. Are the other ones like just people who weren't performing? Is that kind of, it's easier to let people go that don't perform, because I've had to do that before. But if you have to let somebody go that you screwed up by yourself, and it's not their fault that they're losing their job, is that kind of the mentality you're going through?
I'd say, yeah. I've had to do that before, where it's not so cut and dry too.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to let guys go that didn't do anything wrong, weren't underperforming, but just weren't in line with the vision of where we wanted to go.
Okay.
And those ones are hard. Sure. It's easy to be like, hey, you're not performing, you got to go. I mean, that's black and white. I mean, even that sucks, but that's, pretty doable. The hard ones are the ones where you have to move somebody on they're not underperforming, but for no reason other than they're not following the vision for where the business is going.
What you were kind of hinting at was you were trying to expand the business out into different areas, right? So everybody knows you as a Honda guy, but lately, I guess in the last 2 years or so, you started doing domestic cars. And I know you were doing a lot of product development. You bought yourself a Faro arm, and I don't know if you got like a 3D printer or any of that sort of stuff, but you've really were pushing really hard to grow the business into different areas, diversify everything. Is that kind of the problems that you ran into, is kind of going in too many directions at once? Can you kind of explain what kind of led to having to let these guys go?
Sure. So 2011, 2012, people start knocking on the door for Corvettes and Camaros. We're looking for, always only the paranoid survive. And so I'm paranoid. I'm thinking, all right, the Honda thing's good, but what's 5 years from now look like? So we got to keep that going, and we got to look to the future. So we were looking for another platform. I wasn't that in love with the Corvettes and Camaros at that time. So we dove into the BMW N54 platform starting in 2012 for about a year and a half. And we dabbled in that and built a turbo kit for it, or at least the turbo manifold and a jig, and put a Motec M800 as a piggyback controller on the factory, with the factory ECU, and played around with some stuff. And after a year and a half of playing with it, it just really wasn't picking up any steam as far as I was concerned. And so, we then dove into the Corvette market and bought a Corvette. And because I really think the only way to do it is to dive in and fully immerse yourself in it
with your own car too.
You got to do it with your own car. You have to live it and breathe it and do it. You just can't fake it.
Right.
So got rid of the BMW, got into the Corvette thing. Like I said, full time in 2014. We're doing mine. We're doing another local guy here, and so then again, we're going, all right, well, how are we gonna do Honda and GM? Because if there was ever two brands that were completely opposite, those are the two.
All right.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
So we ended up with splitting. So Kaizenspeed is the business, and then Kaizenspeed and KS Tuned are the two brands. So we have separate Facebook pages, separate YouTube channels, separate Instagram accounts. YouTube.com/KS Tuned and YouTube.com/Kaizenspeed, and the same thing for Facebook and Instagram. And so then the idea is we're going to do Corvette tuning under the Kaizenspeed name and continue Honda tuning with the KS Tuned name. And we have to do it in such a way that we're impassioned and real about both of them, because nobody likes fake, fake bullshit. I feel like it's really important to obviously know what you're doing, and the only way to do that is to be fully immersed in it. And so you can't have Honda content piggybacking Corvette content and vice versa, because I don't know.
People can see through it.
It's just not real.
Right.
And nobody wants to see that. I don't want to go to I don't want to know about hot rod stuff when I'm doing when I'm interested in sport front wheel drive content.
That's why people don't bring me Camaros, because I wouldn't have any idea what to do to them.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's why you have to say no to things that you're not good at, and you have to pick your niche, and then you have to say yes to everything within that niche. So like we say no to anything that's not GM or Honda. Okay. Even if Ford's close, if tuning a Ford is I don't know, is doable. It's just not something that I can do really, really well. Uh-huh. So we don't do it. There's just too much to know to do it really well, Exactly. Yeah. So I'm trying to lead back into, where we ended up having to let two guys go. So like I said, I like to dive in head first. So we end up committing heavy to developing new products and marketing those products. So the idea is make the thing, sell the thing, right?
Yep.
So we have a team. We're making money. We've got products that are selling. This is just a couple of years ago, 2014, 2015. We've got some products that are just moving on their own in the Honda thing that's kind of feeding the fire. And so then we dive into, new product development. Like you said, we bought a ferro arm. We hire an engineer who is, so engineer is make the thing. Marketing sales guy is sell the thing. So yep. We're gonna make more things. We're gonna sell more things. And what we find is that that's absolutely right, but it's going to take longer and cost more money than we realized. Yep. At the same time that we're spending just gobs of money on this development stuff, new product, and we develop a new product. It's, hey, I need to do this. Hey, I need to buy this. I need this piece of software. I need this. We need to test this. It's just thousands of dollars. Just like I couldn't have thrown it out the window fast enough.
Yeah, it was engineering software is crazy expensive.
Unbelievable. And at the same time that's happening, our products are getting ripped off in the Honda thing. And so we're seeing in our bread and butter products, we're seeing a decline of sales of, a good percentage from knockoff products. So that at the same time that we're spending significantly more, our bread and butter stuff is declining. So then we have to rely more on tuning income and stuff. So long story short, it was kind of the perfect storm. And so we ended up having to let, those two growth guys go.
Okay.
And, that sucked.
Okay. Well, enough of the downing part of this thing. What's something you're doing right now that has you fired up?
The dealership thing. So we've got Corvettes and Camaros that you can buy and finance with our performance packages right from the dealership. And that's huge for us because it means that instead of having to fork out $10,000 or $12,000 out of pocket, you can finance it, and it's $150 a month, and that makes it a lot more doable for people.
And you're calling it's a KS 750 or something like that. What's the name of the packages that you're selling?
Yeah, so we do it pretty basic. It's horsepower dot and then the type of power adder. So if it's naturally aspirated and it makes 600 horsepower, it's 600N. It's a 600.N. If it's 800 horsepower and supercharged, it's an 800S.
Okay.
And so, those packages are available from the dealership, branded with all of our stuff, all of our hardware, and that's a huge thing that we're working on moving forward.
Do you offer that package as a add-on to somebody who already has a Corvette or a Camaro?
Yeah, we do, but it doesn't have the aesthetics package that you get from the dealership, and it doesn't have the written warranty.
Okay. And so that you probably had to work all that out with the dealership that you're selling the product to, right?
Yep, and that's one of the things that we got figured out with our sales and marketing guy, but it just took a long time. Mm-hmm. And I hate having to let that guy go because this is I call him the human whisperer. Like, this is a guy that has skills I just don't have. He can just talk to people and just at length and build these relationships over, months and months of time that I personally would rather just be in the shop.
Now the back to these packages again. I mean, you have a sales guy. Like, say things start ramping up, because we were talking about this a little bit earlier this year through text messaging. Or actually, it's probably a couple weeks ago. But you were saying that right now is like kind of the down season for you guys, and obviously selling Corvettes when it's snowing and raining outside is not easy to do. So,
Yeah.
Are you expecting growth and more sales to this stuff maybe through the summer? Is that something that, like, if you could bring these guys back on, would you do it?
Yeah. Yep. And we're working towards doing that.
Okay.
The thing is, I think it's more than, so let's zoom out even more. It's more than just this summer. Like, for people to for these things to start selling from the dealership, that it's going to take the kind of guy who's willing to take a leap, who hasn't heard of Kaizenspeed before. He's going to have a good experience. He's going to have to tell somebody else. And that's going to have to happen over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Before it really ramps up. So instead of like, is it going to ramp up over the summer? I think it's going to ramp up over 3 years.
Okay.
You know, and that's the biggest thing that I've realized is the bigger the goal, the bigger the ambition, the longer it's going to take.
Very good. Very good. So you're not just looking for, what you're going to do this sales this summer. You're looking for like the life of this platform, right? So whatever the C7 vet is still in production, you're going to want to build these that whole time and increase your sales through word of mouth and through those people taking them out and having fun with them, racing their buddies, and then their buddy wants to buy one, huh?
Right. And they have to have a good experience. That's the thing.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Kaizenspeed itself. How big is the space you're in?
So we're in a 3,100 square foot shop. We've got an upstairs and a downstairs. So downstairs is kind of our front showroom area, and front and an office area. Then we've got the shop where the dyno is. We've got an engine build room, and then upstairs is our offices where we've got, like I said, the Faro arm and online sales, and our bookkeeper sits there and does bookkeeping things.
Okay. And do you rent that or do you own it?
We rent it.
Okay.
Yep.
And have you ever written a formal business plan?
I've never completed a formal business plan. When I first got started, I started to write one, and actually that's not true. I have probably a 25-page working document that I add to every now and then.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a formal business plan, but it is a plan, and you have it written down, huh?
For sure. And for Kaizenspeed, we have we have 10 commandments. We have, and I have them hung up in 3 different places on the wall. We have a 8-year mission, which I guess now is a 7-year mission. We wrote it at the very end of 2015.
Okay.
To build Kaizenspeed into a $10 million premium performance brand by 2023, so that we have the human and technology resources to influence the industry and systems in place to last forever.
Okay.
So that's our current mission.
Okay. And how many people are you at right now? How many employees? Or I guess
5.
Okay. And that is including you or not including you?
So let's see, because so that's including me because we just got rid of 2.
Okay. And then do you find it difficult to manage them?
It's right now with the core group, it's a lot easier.
Okay.
And that's I think what I was talking about before. We had brought some guys in that were from outside the industry because I wanted fresh perspective.
Okay.
I like to disrupt things for sure. And I gave too much credit to disruption and not enough credit to experience. And those people require a lot of coaching and a lot of time. And so when the timeline's, zoomed out 3, 4, 5 years, you have to survive in the meantime. So you have to do both at the same time. You have to survive right now and pay rent right now, whether that's with cash you have or with cash that you're earning or debt. So those are the 3 ways, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to make sure that 3 and 4, if it's with debt now, you have to make sure that in 3 and 4 and 5 years, it's going to be enough to get you back to zero and above zero.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's incredibly difficult to manage people, for sure. The bigger the team, the harder it is. And the big thing for me was I realized, here's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, I'm sitting here and I've got 5 things to do.
Okay.
If one of those things is sales and marketing and one of those things is product development, then if I hire a product development guy, doesn't that take one away? And if I hire a sales and marketing guy, doesn't that take that other one away? So now I only have 3 things to do instead of 5. But that's not at all how it works. That's not at all how it works. What really happens is I've got 5 things to do. I hire one of them sales and marketing, one of them's product development. I hire a guy for sales and marketing, a guy for product development, and now what they're going to do is full time make the sales and marketing task bigger.
Yep.
And make the product development task bigger. So it's not that I had 5 things and then I got rid of, gave the responsibility of 2 of them to 2 people. What happened is I have 5 things and I just made 2 of them bigger.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't recognize that. I mean, this is very insightful because even at the level of a 1-person shop going to a 2-person shop, or a 2-person shop going to a 3-person shop, or even like a 20-person shop going to a 21-person shop, when you add that person, you're definitely not making things easier. You're making it more complex. And if you can't maintain it with, your 2-person shop before you hire the 3rd-person shop, you're just going to be in more trouble, right? And I think a lot of people don't recognize that more people just means more problems. If you have a really tight ship and a systems in place to do it, it makes it easier, so that's why very large companies, can hire 10 people and it not even affect anybody. It's just they already have the systems in place. Everybody knows their roles and responsibilities and you're good to go. But when you double your staff by adding 1 person, it's hard.
It's insane. And you just have to realize what your skill set is, because some people are really good at managing people. They have the the natural ability, to lead, and then they also have, they've learned through, coaching or experience, in management positions or whatever, the kind of nuts and bolts as well as the natural ability. So, I guess personally, I've had an internal audit, and I'm good with people like me,
mm-hmm.
car guys, and people that are not car guys. I have a hard time relating to them because I drop a lot of fuck yous and and that.
Yep. Can you break down your shop's revenue? I mean, between like part sales, service, manufacturing, engineering, like, do you break it down by, like Honda versus Corvette stuff? Do you break it down in that way? Can you kind of give us an idea?
Sure. So right now, as far as service and shop work, it's probably 85-15 Honda Corvette Camaro, so GM versus Honda service work. So as far as dyno tuning and service work, like I said, it's probably 85% GM and 15% Honda tuning stuff. And I'd like to do more Honda tuning stuff. So we gotta make sure that we keep Honda tunes. We don't want people to be like, hey, they're just a Corvette shop now, mm-hmm. Because we do want to keep tuning Hondas. And then as far as parts manufacturing, so like online sales, that's about 40% of the business.
Okay.
It used to be about 50%, but like I said, we've seen a decline.
Yeah.
Because of knockoff products. And I think that's just natural product life cycle. You can talk about patents all day long, but at the end of the day, protecting a patent is another huge expense. And when the whole value in a year of the sales of the product, aren't over $100,000 or something, it probably doesn't warrant a legitimate patent and then patent protection.
Right.
Especially, it's not just like people don't realize to go and protect a patent for a guy that's already pulled in a million directions. That's one more thing to add to the plate that costs money and time.
Yeah, and
so a patent isn't always the...
Yeah, I mean, it's not always the answer. You're exactly right. And so you're saying the life cycle of your product is, I mean, when did you make these products that you're selling, and like how long did they go before people started ripping them off?
Yeah, I think we got, like we have one product that just took off like a, rocket ship and worked really, really well. And we got, let's see, 3.5 years before anybody knocked it off. And then another one got probably 2 years before somebody knocked it off. So people always talk about, oh, I'm going to make this product, but man, what if somebody rips it off? And then they talk themselves out of it and they get scared and they're like, oh, and then they sit around, 3 years goes by and then somebody else does make it. And they're like, I had that idea. I'm like, you were a pussy and you didn't pull the trigger. Because even if you make it right now, say you make the most obvious, easy to copy product, I make it right now and it's for sale tomorrow. And I dangle that in front of somebody who has more resources to manufacture it, to sell it, whatever. They have a full plate too. So even if you created the most obvious product, dangled it in front of somebody with more resources, it's still going to take them at least a year before they get it going. Yep. I've just never seen anything get copied in less than a year.
Yeah, and
in my experience, it's been more than 2.
And you also have you currently have the advantage of having pretty expensive resources at your fingertips. So like having a ferro arm, so you know exactly what kind of clearances and tolerances and area you have to work with is, something that some dude making products, just welding in his garage is not going to have the ability to match your quality.
Yeah. Except, you know what else? You can always, and this is for the guy that's in his garage just doing it by hand, you can always overcome fancy equipment with time. You just can. Like you can trial fit. So like the ferro arm, we could scan an engine bay and scan an engine and create a virtual playground and create a turbo kit that fits perfect and doesn't run into any engine mount or doesn't rub on any part of the engine bay and doesn't melt any hoses or anything, right? We can do all that virtually sitting in a padded leather chair.
Right.
Or you could drop the drivetrain, mock it up, bolt the drivetrain up, it hits, drop the drivetrain, cut it apart, weld it back together, put it back up, it hits, but a little bit less, drop the drivetrain, cut it apart, weld it back together, put it back up, right? Until it fits perfect. Uh-huh. So you can overcome the ferro arm or, that type of concept with effort, for sure.
Good, interesting perspective on that one. I guess it's totally true. You always just assume that the products when they're engineered are usually overall a better product, but
I know.
So I guess that's
totally.
It's just an assumption, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I've found myself romanticized about equipment maybe a little bit too much. Because even with the equipment, it's still fucking hard.
Yep.
We have this like, I'm going to buy this piece of equipment, everything's only going to take 5 minutes to do, and like, no. Now you just have it still takes forever.
I really liked Terry Fair's interview where he bought all these CNC machines to manufacture his camber plates, and it took him a year, like literally a year, to get up to speed to be able to, I guess, profitably manufacture the product. You spend $500,000 in machines, and it takes you a year to even make anything from them.
Yeah. How is that? I have the $500,000 in machines. I parked them over in the corner, and don't I just hit the start button? and they just start just jumping into boxes. I know. I feel that's where experience just comes in. You can't ever replace just like doing it. Like you can plan until the cows come home, until you're blue in the face, but no matter what, you're going to have to adjust and adapt. So the best thing that you can do is just get started.
Well, how many hours a week are you working?
Oh, right now I'm pretty cushy. I'm pulling 40 hours a week right now.
Nice, very nice. And you have a wife.
Yep.
But no kids, right?
No kids.
Okay, and she's been with you for a while, or at least long enough to know how the car thing works, huh?
Oh yeah, since 2008.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, since 2008.
Okay. And are you paying yourself regularly?
Yeah. I just take a paycheck when everybody else takes a paycheck.
Okay.
But
After everybody else, usually, I would assume.
Oh, for sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, actually, over the winter, I didn't take a paycheck for 6 weeks.
Okay. So the guys that you had to let go. I mean, you obviously sacrificed to the point where you're not paying yourself at all, and you still can't cover their paycheck. You just got to let them go, huh?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it just comes down to, I build a little bit of buffer between myself and the street, for sure, and I'm unwilling to cut into that buffer, but yeah, that there wasn't no, and the buffer, there didn't always used to be a buffer,
right? Right. Do you find the pay justifies the time spent? Or is it as a work of passion still?
I couldn't be doing anything else. I'm unemployable.
All right. And what are you doing with your time? Are you spending it doing the work or managing the business? I mean, you said you wanted to tune Hondas and you wanted to tune Corvettes, but you also have to spend all this time managing the people. Break down your time for us.
Yeah. So it cycles. It's cycling because, a year ago I was sitting in this office chair that I'm in right now almost all the time. We got it to the point last year where I would tune only on Mondays. So I'd be on the dyno on Monday. Sometimes that would bleed over into Tuesday, but I've got a good screening guy, Nick, that runs the front counter, does a really good job of not over promising. He doesn't say yes unless we can actually do it. So last year, most of my time was spent managing, kind of planning, doing a lot of that kind of stuff, and not being as hands-on as I am right now. And so it just depends, kind of year to year as the business needs different things, or as I get a vision that I'm chasing, where I'm spending my time. Right now, I spend almost all my time in the shop. Probably 75% of my time is in the shop.
Okay.
Lately.
And this is where I want to cover the name, your namesake, Kaizenspeed, and the idea of Kaizen, constantly improving your business and your, the way things are working out. What have you been doing, in the last two years, I guess, since you started the podcast? What have you been doing to improve your business? So
I joined a business coaching group in 2015 that was meeting down in Arizona once a quarter in person. It's a bunch of businesses that have at least $1 million in sales. So that, they've reached just a milestone. And the reason that they do that is so that we all kind of have, similar problems.
Okay.
Right. So I at huge expense, I joined this business coaching group, and it was all about how to set a vision in place, chase that vision, build a culture that, would work. Like I said, systems in place that would, allow you to grow over time, how to deal with complex issues like firing people, hiring people, managing people, product development, et cetera. And it was a bunch of businesses from all over the country and actually all over the world that would get together and follow a structured format for a couple of days once a quarter. And then we'd also have, Skype type calls once every couple of weeks. And so I did that and have spent a lot of time doing that 2016. And learned a lot, and now I'm trying to put it into place because I put it into place without the proper context. And so now I'm taking those principles, and I wanted it to happen fast. And it didn't happen as fast as I wanted it to happen.
Can you give us some examples of things that this group kind of encourages you to work on?
Culture is the number one thing. So they would preach, and I believe this totally, which is here's the concept. The concept is, if you're going to build a ship, don't gather the wood. And you've seen this meme, I'm sure. if you're going to build a ship, don't gather the wood, the men, and tell them how to build a ship, right? Just teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea, right? Like that's the concept. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
So the idea then is just to be able to build a culture where you're not leading with a carrot, like the drive for the goal is coming from inside everybody. Like that's what everybody wants to do, and everybody's rowing in the same direction, not because you're whipping them, but because you created a place where everybody wants the same thing.
The exact opposite of every corporate job I've ever had.
Yeah. I think that's changing though, because this company that ran this is $100 million company.
Okay.
And so they're pretty super corporate. But their whole competitive advantage is that they are trying to, make it culture driven. And it's a little bit, I don't know. It's a little hippy dippy.
All right. I'll take your word for it. Okay. And so, I mean, you're working on improving these little things. Are you able to see any difference? I mean, obviously culture is a very hard thing to measure. Like you can't measure, I guess you could ask your employees if they feel like they're welcome and their ideas are welcome and that kind of sort of mentality. But how do you measure improvements from this sort of stuff?
Yeah. That's a great question and a complex one. You just constantly take its temperature. So it's just a lot of touch points. And so that's what I mean when I said you the more people you get, the more time you spend coaching. So you end up just really taking its temperature a lot. Lots of conversations, that are just checking in. How's this going? How's that going? Talk to me about this. How can I help you with that? And so the way that you measure it is you just take its temperature often.
Okay. And that's more on like a personal level. Do they give you like productivity numbers to measure and like look at your sales versus how many employees you have? Do they give you any of that sort of stuff to kind of use as I guess a metric to measure improvements from?
One of the meets that we did down there was, a 2-day thing all about KPIs and, key performance indicators. Mm-hmm. And it was just all types of different ways to measure productivity. And every type of business is so different, one's sales and one's how do you measure customer satisfaction? Because I don't know, you send out a survey that's like, were you happy with your thing? Measure 1 to 5. Well, here's the biggest thing. What if you measure it? Measuring it doesn't mean shit if you don't know what to do with the measurement.
Right, exactly.
It's just so difficult because first, measuring it is next to impossible, especially in a service business, in my opinion, to do it properly. Because I don't believe in the, satisfaction 1 to 5 kind of thing. That's difficult. Secondly, then okay, you get a bunch of surveys back and you're reading through them, and what do you average 20 people's satisfaction? And if it's below 4.2, then what do you do? If it's between 4.1 and 4.5, what do you do? So it ends up being you just got to be good at it. You got to just have your kind of gut feeling. It just can't be that structured. And yeah, I don't know. So it's this balance between structure and gut feeling.
Okay. Now, a little different topic here. What are you guys using? What are the tools you're using in your trade as far as like software goes? I mean, you said you had to buy some expensive, engineering software. What kind of accounting stuff are you using? Kind of break that down for us.
So for accounting, it's QuickBooks, Enterprise Solutions. Mm-hmm. So that's expensive. Like basic QuickBooks is cheap, but QuickBooks Enterprise is like, I don't know, seems like they charge us $3,000 like all the time, but I guess it's once a year.
Right.
We have GeoMagick, DesignX, SolidWorks, and I don't know. Let's see.
SolidWorks being one of the expensive ones.
Yeah, SolidWorks, one of the expensive ones. Geomagic is one of the expensive ones. So Geomagic takes, scan data, and it basically does what SolidWorks does.
Okay. It works with the Ferroarm. Is that what it's for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then what kind of advertising and marketing are you doing?
Social media, like you just got to beat it to death. So, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, mostly Facebook and Instagram.
Have you given up on forums?
Yeah, long time ago. And I try to get back into it. Matter of fact, last year I sponsored Honda Tech and Corvette Forum, and I found myself there never.
All right.
Like I just can't. I don't know. That format for me personally, it just doesn't work. I don't know. I used to be a huge forum whore when I would sit at a desktop, like before, phones.
Mm-hmm.
But I never am sitting at a desktop anymore. So it's always just pull out my phone. And I don't know. Have you found an app that works well on a phone for posting in forums? I haven't.
No, what I haven't cared in at least 5 years.
Yeah. I haven't been on the forums in forever. So it's all Facebook, and Facebook groups, in my opinion, have taken the place of forums.
Yeah.
I like Facebook groups.
Yep. There's some of them that I think are a little not vulgar, but toxic. I can't even read them because they're so toxic and everybody hates everybody.
Yeah.
But there are certainly groups that are worth reading and participating in, and obviously, we'll get onto the Do It for Living group here in a few minutes. But I mean, car related stuff is definitely all Facebook groups as far as I know. So.
Yeah, and it's a whorehouse. You get a lot of garbage. That's why a good Facebook group's so important. You got to screen who gets in there.
Right,
like
exactly.
The Do It for a Living community.
Exactly.
Like, you just can't let a bunch of knuckleheads in.
Now, you said, social media is your go-to for advertising and marketing. What do you find works for actually promoting the business? I mean, is it like just putting up a sale, or are you
No, just repetition.
Okay.
There's nothing that and I've tried every other thing. I've tried the sale, the do this right now, and that works every now and then. I mean, that's cool. But the best thing is just beat it to death. Like, you just post the most and have every one of those posts be good.
So, like, when you're doing your the oil pan, I remember you were posting a lot of, like, you had like the SolidWorks drawings, and it looked like you had like different renderings of that, and the process of building that was obviously really cool to see. Is that something that worked out really well for you?
Yes, I think it works. I think it's cool to see. I think that kind of puts some pedigree behind it. But you can't even measure the number of likes, because those don't directly result in shares.
Right.
In purchases. Because I've had a bunch of some of the posts that we've made have been, like you said, like vulgar. Like, the ones that get the most shares and the most likes are just the ones with, like, we have a nitrous plate, and the most shares, the most likes, the most attention is on the post where where we sprayed nitrous into an open plate, because it's just like, right?
Uh-huh.
And so then that becomes fun to share. That doesn't necessarily drive sales.
Right. So
I think that the best thing to do is just win the top of mind game.
Okay.
Which is do it over and over and over again.
Okay.
And not post garbage.
Have you been able to go drag racing at all and use that as a marketing platform?
That's probably better than social media. That's definitely.
Have you actually gone in a long time though? I mean.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. We were. Let's see. My guys were out racing last weekend.
Okay.
I wasn't there because I was moving.
Okay.
But let's see. And we were out testing maybe 6 weeks ago, and we'll be racing again April 29th. Like I said, our trailer and a bunch of our cars were out racing last weekend.
Okay.
So yeah.
And you're doing the half mile stuff with a lot of your I guess GM stuff, right?
Yeah, we've been doing the half mile stuff. That's really fun. So yeah, half mile and then drag racing. Okay. And actually, we've got a couple of guys that are doing the Ultimate Streetcar Challenge.
Yeah, I saw him in Vegas.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So we just did another one of his buddies. yesterday. Yeah, excuse me. Yesterday. So, that seems to be picking up.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to touch on the Do It for a Living podcast that you've created and obviously the community as well. Has it lived up to your expectation?
Oh, it's just really cool to see it still going, for sure. I was I knew it would have helped me when I was coming up, and I would have been just, enamored with that information, being able to hear those guys. But I was a little shy about it because I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a performer.
Yep.
So it's interesting to find yourself doing interviews and hearing yourself talk. And so I'm super stoked that it's doing what it's doing. I get emails, I'm sure you do as well, that are all super, super positive. And I think that it's just cool that happens because I was able to break past kind of my fear.
Okay.
And just fucking do it anyways.
And then the at least from my perspective, I guess not the goal. I guess it is the goal. The goal of the podcast was really to make everybody in the industry, at least the people who are involved in the industry, where people who own shops and whatnot, to make it kind of move everything forward a step, like make it more professional, make it, people understand how to run their business better. People understand that you're not the only one making these stupid mistakes, like that whole kind of like sharing of problems and solutions, and that whole thing I think has like been so valuable to me. And, I kind of hope that that's the same kind of thing that everybody else is getting too, right?
Resources, right? I mean, resources and networking. So like the ability to maybe have a conversation with somebody that you otherwise wouldn't be able to have a conversation with. Because you heard them talk about something on the podcast that now you can go and say, hey, I didn't realize that you offered that service, or I didn't realize that was a thing. And so you can make these connections. And I want Do It for a Living to grow those connections for people and help people. I mean, that's what Do It for a Living really is for, is it's to help the performance industry and the people within it.
Yeah, and what's really cool is when you go to events now and you see the people you've interviewed, or at least for me, I've seen them and they don't even know who I am because they're just talking to me on the, like Skype here. But it's cool to see them in their element and then actually meet them and talk to them and, chat about it. It's really fun. So
yeah, I think I'm just really glad you guys took it over, because it was becoming, like I said, I like to jump in and drown, and I was drowning in it. I was doing 2 a week. It's awesome that you guys took it over and kept it going, because it would have been a real bummer to kind of have that momentum die, and you guys have been doing sick.
Yeah,
I'm super stoked.
For people who don't know, this is a money loss. I mean, nobody's making any money on this podcast. I mean, we're literally doing it for fun. But I think that's, and I understand your perspective of it, is doing 2 of them a week. Doing 1 a week is hard. And that's why this year we've been kind of struggling with doing that, because we're moving into a new building, and then you had Texas 2K, which is like a mess for us always every year. And so just trying to get people committed to sitting down and chatting for an hour and a half and getting that done just takes an enormous amount of time. And you're doing 2 a week, and I don't know how you did it, honestly, without taking all your time away. So
80 hours a week.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how it is.
Yeah.
But in the long term, this is another one where it's not measurable, but there's definitely value to you in doing this, for sure. Like, there's value in the knowledge that you gain. There's value in growing awareness of who you are, the networking opportunities that you create. You're on a first name basis with people that otherwise you wouldn't be. And it's good. I mean, so it's just not measurable, but in the long term, it's got huge value.
Yeah, definitely. And for my business, I have found that my shop every year gets more and more efficient, because I'm with you right now. I'm doing 40 hours a week. I guess you could say in the last month, because of Texas 2K and the new building, I'm working more than that. But I can pretty regularly come in at 8 after I drop my daughter off at school, and I can leave by 5. And I've kind of held to that schedule, and I don't have to work weekends. And I'm still making enough money to, buy a new building, so that it's there.
Right. Yeah, it's doable. And Yeah, it's really doable. But you have to outlast. Like it wasn't that way at the beginning for you or me or anyone else, right? So we've been doing it for a long time. So we learn what works, what to say no to. We're right more often than we're wrong when we say no. We're right more often than we're wrong when we say yes.
Yeah.
Right, to a project that might be a hot mess. And if you are a shop, you have to have a dyno. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
Like that as a service shop, because otherwise the guy that comes in thinks he can do what you do.
Right.
He's probably wrong, but he thinks that. So his perceived value of what you do isn't where it should be. But if you have a dyno and you do a good job on the dyno, you can charge for that, and the customer's perceived value of it matches what you need to charge for it. So if you're a service shop, you have to have a dyno.
Yep, I agree. And okay, so next topic I guess I want to say is action items. So I want to give the audience an action item, and at least the people in the Do It for a Living community. Like, let us know something that you have taken from these podcasts and how you've applied it to your business and if it's helped or not. Like, I really want to hear from the other people, all the people listening to this, whether or not, this has made a difference or something in particular that has made a difference in your business or your life in person. And now, what's your takeaway, or sorry, what's an action item that you would give people, Reid, that they can use to improve their situation?
Focus on a niche and charge for your time. To focus on a niche, you have to say no to anything else once you've found the niche that can support you. But you have to say yes to everything within that niche. That's one. And two, charge for your time, but you have to be upfront about it. You have to set the expectation at the beginning. If you're going to charge a lot, it better be worth it.
Yeah.
Because the only metric that matters is the customer's perceived value. Like you can't just slap somebody with a big bill and then be surprised when they're upset. I see so many shop owners complaining about this on Facebook, but I bet it's because the expectation wasn't set up front.
Not enough communication on what you were going to be charging for and what you're charging for and what's going to be accomplished.
You got to understand that if you have a price sensitive customer, if he's from the beginning constantly harping on price, so if you've got a price sensitive customer, you're going to have to communicate more with that guy during the process. So you can't, I guess, fake it. You just got to be over communicate and set the expectation up front. Have the awkward, this is going to be a lot of money type conversation up front, or at the very least, because the argument against that is, well, I'm going to scare him away with price. The guy down the street's going to just sit, charge $100, and then, he's gonna say it's gonna be 100. It's gonna end up being 5,000. So that's the argument, right? And then we whine about whack-a-mole shops and how as soon as they pop up and then they go away and then they pop up again, but meanwhile you're still there struggling. So at least give a reasonable estimate at the beginning and then communicate along the way.
Right. Yep.
If you're not gonna scare them away with, if you don't want to under quote and you don't want to over quote, then you have to give somebody a reasonable estimation, and then keep them informed along the way.
Yeah, and at least for me, I avoid the price shock by, at least on the larger projects, is doing billing on the fly, right? So take a deposit, take a middle deposit, take an end, the final payment. So you break it up into 3 payments, and they're not shocked by a $10,000+ bill, right? So
great technique. Got to do that. Yeah, we take a 50% deposit up front, and we charge $50 to schedule an appointment. So like a tuning appointment,
non-refundable.
Non-refundable, unless you call. We're not
shocked.
Unreasonable about it.
Okay.
Right, but if you want to schedule an appointment and it's going to go on the calendar and we're going to mark out time, to tune, it's $50, and it doesn't cost you $50. It's just $50 now that goes towards your tune.
Okay.
And then anybody who's going to raise a stink about that, you didn't want to put them on your schedule anyways.
What's something you're struggling with business, and how are you dealing with it?
I think we talked about it a little bit, or probably at length already. Just time, how to be in the shop and lead a team at the same time. That's what I'm struggling with.
Okay.
I'm getting better at it.
And you said you have your your business plan, and you said it was out to like 2023. So what is the 1-year plan right now for the business?
I just want to get back to a steady clip. I want to get a handle on the declining products with new products. I've got a bunch of new products that are that we're working on, and I want to get those established and selling and people using them. So that's for us. That's the nitrous throttle body plates for the import stuff, and the performance platforms for the domestic stuff.
Okay, let's go all the way out to the 2023. What is the goal for that one? You said $10 million a year company. Is that something you think you're on the path for still?
Yeah. The only thing now is I'm careful what I wish for. I wonder if we get and we grow to that, what that looks like as far as how I spend my day. Mm-hmm. So what the internal audit is all about is, do I want to spend my day? Because at a $10 million top line revenue business, we're 35 employees, and I'm spending all of my time talking with people, coaching, leading, and I almost want to scale it back. Yeah. So I gotta reconcile that and figure out what I want.
And you also have this is something that not a lot of people think about either, but a $1 million a year company that's 10%, net profit is better than a $10 million company with a 1% net profit too, right?
Yeah, right.
Because you have less to worry about, same amount of money.
Dollar amount and more hair on your head.
Yeah.
With a $1 million 10% deal for sure.
That's why I like my one-man operation.
Yeah, and I see. I've got to taste and sample some bigger things, and I don't like how some of it tastes.
Very interesting. I mean, what's cool about this is you set a goal, and you've kind of looked towards what that goal is, and now you've kind of thought, like maybe that's not exactly what I want, and you kind of change the goals on the fly, huh? I mean, it's not really on the fly because it's so far out there, but you're at least thinking what you really want.
Rolling with the punches, mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, and that's why you got to just get started, because you can plan all you want, but you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to have to adapt and bob and weave and for sure.
Okay. So let's go on to the quick answer questions, and these are fun because I don't think did you answer these or not, but let's see what you have to say for them. What's a game-changing product you've seen in the last year?
$200 do-it-yourself 3D printers. Like, does everybody realize that for $200 you can buy and assemble your own 3D printer and print on like a 9x9 inch bed?
They've come down in a lot. They're like 2 years ago they were thousands of dollars. So that's
a legit thing. You can buy look up Prusa. There's all kinds of freeware, and you can buy a fully assembled self-centering printer for $7.99. That's a 9x9 bed.
That's the same price as my laser printer here.
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of software are you using daily?
What kind of software am I using daily? Audible.com.
Okay, listening to books?
Audiobooks.
Okay.
I like that. That works for me.
And favorite app?
Audible.com.
Okay, same one.
Or Spotify if I'm just in the shop jamming.
Okay.
So nothing really cool there.
Favorite shop tool?
Dyno.
Okay, still the dyno, huh?
Yep.
I almost thought that the ferro arm would take it away, but I think the dynos are really fun, and I think measuring things is not all that fun.
I wanted it to. It's way more Hollywood. The 3D scanner is way more Hollywood than the dyno, but the dyno's more real.
Okay.
I don't know, to me.
And what are you daily driving?
2005 Dodge Ram 3500.
Okay, shop truck, huh?
Yep, shop truck, and then the Outlaw Civic is in the shop, and the Corvette is in the shop.
Okay. And what do you see as the future of automotive performance?
Software. Shops worth their salt are going to need somebody who can write code. Mm-hmm. All these devices have to interface with the car and each other, and at the speed that new cars are coming out, and new products are coming out means that waiting for the manufacturer to figure out compatibility for what you're working on, it's probably not going to work. You need to spend time like learning CAN and like PDMs replacing relays and all of that logic switching. It's just, that's what you need to do. So every shop is going to have a guy that really understands code and software, because that's where it's going. For sure.
I agree with you on this one, because I am actually, now my software is less oriented towards, I guess, tuning cars, but I have been doing the Codecademy stuff to try to learn how to program myself. So I think that's where everything is going, and I think that's where the most value of, like, I guess moving forward, because, really anybody can wrench on cars. That doesn't take a lot to learn how to do that. It's learning how to program them and doing that sort of stuff is definitely where the value is. So
yeah, and using someone else's software is even becoming like there's less value in it, because you put out a piece of software, a lot of people are used to using software and can find out a lot of EFI tuning type things and can fumble around in it and figure it out. But to be able to take a piece of software and adapt it to do what you need it to do, or to create a device that works with someone else's software, as opposed to just using a piece of software. Yeah. Like modifying the piece of software is, I think, where you're going to have to be.
Yeah, and the CAN stuff is so cool, and I have not even had a chance to dabble with it, but I'm familiar with what it all is, obviously, but just most of the Evo stuff is still just open source factory tuning, and the Evo 10s have some CAN, but like all the aftermarket ECUs, all the sensors are talking together and learning how to program all that. That's how people are going faster, right? So that's how Giddy and the AMS team went 6s. They didn't do that by fumbling their way through software. Their guys know how to do it, right?
Yeah. And shout out to HPA, because they have a couple of good online courses about what CAN is and some applied examples. Okay. So I think everybody should go watch those videos. And I don't know, you have to be a paid member probably to watch those, but they're definitely worth it. They've got a handful of online videos where they're explaining CAN and kind of giving some examples using a Motec dash, and it's pretty cool.
Okay, and for the newer listeners, HPA is a high performance academy. We have links on our webpage for checking them out and going to their site. So
yeah, check them out and watch those videos.
All right, Reid. So let's close this thing out. How do we get a hold with you and your company?
Kaizenspeed.com for the domestic side, kstuned.com for the import side, and facebook.com/Kaizenspeed, facebook.com/kstuned, and the same thing for Instagram and YouTube. So we post usually once a day at least. Sometimes 0 times a day, and sometimes 4 times a day on Facebook and Instagram. So that's probably the best way to keep in touch with what we're doing daily.
Okay. Well, I wanted to thank you for setting some time to talk with us again, and congratulations on putting this thing together and making episode 100. I mean, this is it's really impressive, man.
Thanks very much for keeping it going, because oh man, it would have been such a bummer if it died.
I totally agree. Yeah, I listened to every episode when they came out. The second it was live, I downloaded it and started listening to it on the drive. So
yeah, good stuff. Kevin, thanks, man.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app. Tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum and attract more high-level